Hello, everybody. On behalf of the Highland Park Public Library, we'd like to welcome you to Library in Your Living Room. We're pleased to present Shelf Isolation, a weekly mini-series about what to read, watch, and play next. I'm Laurie, and we're part of your Information and Reader Services Department.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and the book I'm going to talk about today is American Harvest, God, Country, and Farming in the Heartland. It's by Mutsuki Mockett. This is a book, like another one I talked about recently, that does not sound very interesting based on the title, but I really loved it. The author is a woman who has lived on both coasts of the United States at various times for her entire life. Her mother is a Japanese American immigrant, and her father is from Nebraska. And through him, the author Mockett inherited some farmland, which she does not farm herself, but she does go with many of her family members every year for the harvest. And so she has sort of gotten interested in that cultural divide. And she starts this book with sort of a question: why is it that people who mostly grow the food in the Midwestern United States are people who believe in divine creation, but are okay with GMOs? Whereas the author's friends, who mostly are people who live in cities, are atheists, and they think GMOs are terrible and want to avoid buying any food with GMOs in them. And so Mockett goes on this journey. She decides to travel one year with a custom harvesting team. And these are the people who basically do the outsourced labor of harvesting crops for farmers who don't want to do it themselves. So they just sort of start in the southern part of the United States, in this case in Texas, and they just move north with the harvest. And so she travels with them. She learns about how they actually do their jobs, and along the way she spends a lot of time talking to various people about their faith, and she sort of explores Christianity and what it means to different people from the perspective of an outsider who's an atheist and I believe a practicing Buddhist. And it was just a really interesting book. Everyone approaches her questions seriously and tries, I guess what I want to say is that she approaches everyone with compassion. There's just a lot of interesting different perspectives in the book. And, you know, even though driving around harvesting, riding in a combine does not sound like the most interesting topic, this book kept me turning pages. I'm really glad that I read it, and I really recommend it.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle. So I just wanted to talk about some things that I've been doing this week. First, I wanted to start out with a book that I actually did talk about some time ago last year during our fall book buzz. It is called Alone Together, Love, Grief, and Comfort in the Time of COVID. It was put together by Jennifer Haupt. It is a collection of essays, poems, and interviews by people in the book industry, kind of about their experiences during the COVID lockdown last year. I was able to finally get the audiobook on Hoopla, which was very exciting, which did include more stories in the print. I do highly recommend it if you kind of are looking for people's experiences. And I really think this will be first of many collections in probably the COVID-19 genre that will probably be coming in the future. So I do recommend that one. Secondly, I wanted to talk about a podcast that I just discovered that I really love. It is called The Delta Flyers. It is a weekly Star Trek Voyager podcast. It is hosted by Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil, who were stars in the show. They were Ensign Harry Kim and Lieutenant Tom Paris, and they each week they watch a different episode of the show, and then they talk about it. They give behind the scenes insights. just fun stories about filming. It's just a really great podcast, especially if you love Star Trek and you love Star Trek Voyager as much as I do. Um, there is plenty of time for you to catch up. They're actually only in the second season right now. I believe they're not done with it yet. So you have plenty of time to listen to it. I'm listening to it now and I love it. I do highly recommend it if you love Trek. They also have a Patreon if you definitely want to get more of those perks. But definitely just the podcast itself is just a lot of fun. And it's available on any like place you can get podcasts like Spotify or on iTunes. And I do highly recommend that one. And that's everything for me today. Hope you have a good week.
Hi. Some of you have noticed last week there's been a lot of buzz about a French series on Netflix called Call Your Agent, a final season 4, which is available on the Roku stick if you check it out. Now, I had not seen this series, but I was interested. It had been recommended to me also by a member of Film and Music Series. So I watched the first season recently, Call My Agent, and it's set in Paris. It's very funny. It makes me laugh out loud. So that's something, very colorful actors. It's about agents at a high-end agency in Paris and working with their stars. And it features cameos by movie stars like Isabella Gianni and I think Sigourney Weaver. I noticed it's going to be coming, and it's really kind of fun. And everyone makes, it has a great, it's very well done and is pretty. And I recommend it highly if you get that Roku stick or you have a subscription to Netflix. And now I'm going to share my screen. And I did check. It doesn't seem to be, even though the first season came out in 2015, I did not see this on DVD anywhere. So it's either your own Netflix or that handy Roku stick from the library. I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about the archives. We talk a lot in Highland Park. There's very many people who are interested in house research and architecture. Ask us questions. Now we have a fair amount of exterior pictures and information about houses, but we don't usually have a lot about interiors, but in one case we do. And it just so happens these interiors were designed, I did not even know this till recently, by David Adler, the architect's sister, Frances Elkins, who was the subject of an Art Institute exhibit a few years ago. And all these beautifully hand-colored glass slides are of her design inside the home, which is now the home of a local rock star. But there is a gentleman in California who is who's writing a book about the interior designer Elkins, and he is using our images in them of the various rooms and her design. And they were already digitized and available, but he had some touched up and he shared them back with us after we touched them up, and they are now online and available. They're not on DPAL, the Digital Library of America yet, but they are uploaded. I'm sure they will be. I'm going to talk about IDA, the Illinois Digital Archive, a little bit, but they're also available through a link through the library website. And you can see some of them are, sometimes they disappear. There's the garage of the interior of this house designed by David Adler, and interior design provided by his sister, Frances Elkins, for a family called the Mandel family, who have several generations lived in Highland Park. And they owned a big department store in Chicago. And one of their descendants, in fact, a niece, they did not have children, this couple, who lived with them when she was a young child with her mother, and her father was in World War II. And so these are some lovely pictures and interesting history of Highland Park to share. Now, of course, we're also still uploading digitization items from Ravinia. And the Illinois Digital Archive is going through some changes, which is ultimately an upgrade, but sometimes it's a little bit tricky to navigate. As you can see, it's not terribly pretty. But again, you can download everything that we've uploaded, these programs. And I'm going to tab over again because I can't see my tabs. And you can see kind of some of the programs you can share. The Rondine, which is sparrow in Italian, is also a music style. And people really, I have found, even more than studying the opera and the opera singers, really enjoy the ads. And I just want to share a few here. So you can see there used to be a school in Lake Forest. People are very nostalgic for Fell's, and actually Fell used to work at the library for Fell. She used lots of Fell ads. and there's many Piketty's also still in Highland Park. And so I encourage you to have a look at the IDA and all the new Ravinia materials that we are putting up and digitizing, and it will get prettier and be on the dp.la as well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm William with Membership Services. And I have to admit that I spent more of last weekend than I wanted playing Divinity Original Sin 2 for the PS4 on my PS5. Now, I mentioned giving the first game a chance a few months back, and it was solid enough that I was ready and waiting to jump to the second game. I was not prepared for how much more this game was. Now, the first game, while open in terms of areas to explore and interactions, was pretty basic in terms of the character you played, outside of picking what skills and talents you wanted to use. In the sequel, they have now included a variety of species that you can play that each have their own benefits. There's a dragonborn race that can breathe fire and dig up buried treasure. There are dwarves that are sturdy and can turn their enemies to stone. Elves that consume body parts to gain access to the memories of the dead. And speaking of dead, you could also play an undead version of any of these things, who have the common fantasy undead immunities and the ability to pick any lock. Skeleton key, get it? In addition to this, the game has 6 pre-generated characters with detailed backstories that just go places. In an early moment in the game, my partner was playing a human bard who's possessed by a mysterious demonic entity. And we found a young oracle who had the answers as to what this demonic entity was. Before we could get the answer, the dame wrested control of her character from her and gave her 4 options. Kill the elf, 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 and you guessed it, kill the elf, kill the elf, kill the elf. The mission immediately became her trying to kill the elf and us trying to prevent her from killing the elf, and thereby starting a civil war in this cave we were trying to hide out in. I just barely was able to pull it off. In addition, the classes in this, not only did they increase the number of classes from the first game, they also rejiggered the overall system, which each one providing you a bonus or perk separate from the abilities unlocked by the class, which is something the first game did not do. In addition, they introduced 2 new classes that radically changed the whole tenor of combat. There's the Polymorph Class, which allows you to both alter your own body for either extra movement, protection, or other physical enhancements. And alternatively, you can just turn your enemy into a chicken and call it a day. There's a Summoning Class, which allows you to conjure a spirit to fight for you that changes based on the material it's summoned from, which in a game that has 12 environmental surface options, of which more than half can be either cursed or blessed based on different situations, give you a lot of options. It's a great experience. I highly recommend. Also, you should remember to save often. The other thing I've been up to is a bit of cooking. As a treat before we packed away our stand mixer, I decided to make my partner some chocolate chip cookies, aka the only necessary cookie. My current favorite recipe comes from a Mr. Joshua Weissman. Weissman first garnered attention at the age of 17 when he published his first cookbook, the Slim Palate Paleo Cookbook, that purported to focus on eating carefully and thoughtfully. He has since become to gain popularity as a YouTuber who publishes recipes, not only paleo, about twice a week. I have a picture here. So those are the end result. They're pretty good. In addition to those, I also have made 2 of his 3 French bread recipes, including the second one, which was a French bread casserole that subbed out traditional bread for croissants, which I picked up at that little French guy. I wish I had pictures of those, but it did not last that long, even though I ended up making it twice. I think definitely if you're hungry, it is worth checking out. And that's all for me. As a good man once said, do not give in to astonishment.
Hi, it's me, Laurie, from the Information and Reader Services Department. And today I am going to talk about a couple of books that I've been reading. One that I got as a present is A Wealth of Pigeons, and it's cartoons by Harry Bliss and Steve Martin. You may have heard of both of them. So Harry Bliss is a cartoonist from the New Yorker, and actually he's like a syndicated cartoonist. He does the single full page cartoons usually. And Steve Martin is an actor, a comedian, banjo player, all around very funny guy. And so they started collaborating where Steve would think up like a punchline or a cartoon idea, and then he'd email Harry, because Harry lives, I guess, in New Hampshire, and Steve Martin lives in Los Angeles. And he would email it to him, and then they'd work on the cartoon like that. And then Harry Bliss said, hey, I've got these cartoons where I've drawn a picture, but I don't have a caption. And so they started working, these two opposite directions. And it's very funny. It's a very funny book. It has mostly cartoons. It has some cartoons about writing cartoons. It has, this one's pretty funny. It's a dog. He says, I have no thumbs. He's panhandling. It's pretty funny. Anyway, I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. It's just nice to pick up a book or anything, like Nancy was saying. She was watching the Call Your Agent. It's nice to be doing anything that makes you laugh or smile, or like William's baking makes you feel good. So that was the first book that I wanted to talk about. The second book I wanted to talk about was there's a series by Amy Stewart. The first book in the series is called Girl Waits with Gun, and it's set in the early before World War II, the 1910s, in rural New Jersey. And it's based on a true woman named Constance Kopp, who became a lady, not sheriff, but like a lady policeman. And it was, as you can imagine, quite an unusual thing to be. And the books are, they're based on true people. Constance, her two sisters, Norma and Florette, and her brother Francis, who doesn't live with them, but Constance and her sisters live on a farm, kind of set away. And now I'm reading what is the fifth in the series, Dear Miss Kopp, and they're all in one way or another participating in World War I, and it's actually written as letters from one to the next, and it's really good. You can tell that they're based in real life, that there's research that has been done, but they're still funny, and heartwarming. And I highly recommend them. And I've also listened to some of them. And if you like audiobooks, I would suggest those, because the narrator, whose name I don't know, is very, very good at doing the different voices and getting the right inflections with what's going on. And so that's what I have to talk about today. That's it for today, folks. As always, remember that we are all here for you. We're available for comments, questions, or concerns that you may have. And you can reach us online through, this is an old one, sorry. And you can reach us online at hppla@hplibrary.org, or you can call us at 847-432-0216. Because the library's hours can change suddenly due to COVID, it's best to contact us via email, or check our website, or call us before coming to the library. Our music today was Carefree by Kevin MacLeod, and you can find more information about this and the titles we mentioned in our show notes below. Okay, this is us signing off. Until we see you next, stay safe.